I'm good. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Standards Committee meeting. Before we go on, can I just ask you all if you have a mobile, either switch it off or put it on silent? Okay. Apologies, other than Councillor Atwell being late, is there anybody else?
Yeah. So we've got Councillor Graves has given his apologies, Councillor Crosser is here as his substitute, and Councillor Patterson giving his apologies, Councillor Haskell is here as his substitute.
Okay, thank you. Late items to be introduced by me, there are none. Declarations of interest, anybody? No? Okay. Minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of January. Would somebody like to move that?
Yeah, so that's rather hard to move in second.
In the absence of everybody
No one was
here. I'll say it's correct. Okay, number 5, the forward plan. Alex, is that you?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is the forward plan that we bring to each meeting of the Standards Committee. Obviously, this meeting is the last scheduled meeting of this municipal year. And I think looking through the items that were included on the forward plan, we have been able to consider everything we did with the report that we're bringing today. Although it is an opportune time to think about what we might want this committee to look at in the next municipal year. So if there are things on the horizon in terms of standards in public life and probity and that kind of thing, then it'll be a good opportunity to add them to the forward plan, and we can schedule them in for the first meeting of the next municipal year. So open it up to the committee chair for any suggestions or recommendations on what we could choose to look at.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Well, as I stated at the time, that this is sort of an open book. We can make additions to it as we go along, and then that's the way it should be. Nothing should be there that can't be altered or can't be added to. Anybody from the independents wish to make any comments? Steve?
No, I think I'm probably not quite for this forum, but I'm always slightly aware that even new councillors and long-term ones, some councillors have this as their only sort of not job, but it's the only thing they commit themselves to, if that's the right way to do it. So it was more about how we can formulate a way of recognition of service, not an award, but as in training and suitability in office and what positions they've held and how that might relate to an external jobs. For instance, if you lose your seat and you've been a councillor for X number of years, you may not have had an external job. Mm-hmm. So it's a way of how then the skills you attain in this role, and they are many, and how we can help that transfer into sort of external life, really. Yeah.
If Alex and I may, this has been raised before, Councillor Haskell. I think Councillor Williams, Yvonne Williams,
okay.
She was councillor. She raised this as, you know, she'd given a large number of years of service to the role and had gained a great number of skills. But then when she decided to retire from being a councillor and to venture into the world of paid work, she was, well, how do I document those skills that she had gained? I think it's something we've discussed previously, isn't it, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that we've recognised in our democracy departmental business plan around how we manage councillors' training and development more broadly. So some of the changes that we've brought in the last municipal year with the monthly training and development evenings, but I do think there is a bigger piece of work to do around how we document the skills and experience that councillors have gained, because ultimately it is a matter of public record which committees or roles councillors have held, but not always the easiest for people to find or locate and get in one place. So I think providing members with a record of their service and also having conversations with councillors about what their ambitions and objectives are for their time in office, because not every councillor will hold the same. Some councillors may wish to fully focus on their ward work, others might want to gain skills and experience that will enable them to become a cabinet member, and having conversations with councillors and having almost a personal development plan for councillors would be something that I think would be really beneficial. However, there are resource requirements that come with that, and with 51 councillors, that's not an insignificant piece of work. But I very much accept your point that I think there is more to be done in how we look at developing councillors and documenting the valuable skills and experiences you gain in the roles that you undertake.
Yeah, that's a very valid point there, and I'm sure we'll carry on looking at it, see how we can be of help.
I think we had at the last meeting, we did have an item on councillor training and development, but we didn't touch on that specific point. So it might be something that we'd want to add to the full plan and bring back in due course once we've had a chance to do a bit more work on it.
Yeah, we should do that.
I think we could maybe do some work with the LGA, contacts with the LGA to see if they have a sort of standard in terms of council development plans, or how it's best to do training records for councillors, for example. So if we could add that as well. Thank you.
No, I think it's a good point there, and certainly from what you said, we know well. Although now it's a 4-year cycle, but previously, they were always changing into who's in administration and who's not, and councillors losing their seats. So I think it's good idea to look. Okay, thank you. There's no item 6 actually. We're missing one.
Sorry, Chair. That is there was a printing error on the agenda that we didn't list the title of item 6, although it was listed on the substantive page on the democracy portal. So,
are there any recommendations on item 5, Chair, that we need to just?
Yes, what's been suggested to look into it, and then you can sort of try and bring it on the agenda for the next meeting.
5 is the recommendation 2.1 to move. You happy with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So item 6 is review the protocol on the use of facilities, services and equipment by councillors. I think Alex was going to pick this up. Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Emily. So bear with me if I just sort my out. So this is an opportunity for the Standards Committee to review a protocol that was last updated in September 2019, but has existed within the council for significantly longer than that. And that is the protocol on the use of facilities, services and equipment by councillors. Catchy title, I'm sure you'll agree. The document, fairly self-explanatory, but it details councillors' access to support facilities within the council, and also provides a framework for their appropriate use. It seeks to differentiate the rights and entitlements of political groups represented on the council to use the council's resources and those of political parties more broadly. And the protocol covers access to officer support, so most immediately via the support services provided through teams like Democratic Services and the Localities team, but also from other services across the council. It also sets out councillors' entitlement to access IT hardware and infrastructure, and also access to things like printing facilities for letters and leaflets. This quite closely links in with the councillor's code of conduct, as any inappropriate use of facilities and resources may be considered a breach of the Nolan principles, and obviously risks bringing the council more broadly into disrepute. And it also links through to various internal Derby City Council policies. So, for example, the IT acceptable use policy, the data protection policy, both of which form part of councillors' annual programme of training that we undertake each June. Thankfully, complaints relating to the inappropriate use of the council's resources are relatively infrequent, although they do typically come to a head around election time, particularly in the pre-election period, colloquially known as PERDA. Those rules and regulations are based on the Code of Recommended Practice on Local Authority Publicity, which was published by the government in 2011. And it places restrictions on activity in the weeks immediately preceding an election, and includes limitations on access to both the physical and human resources of the council. This report really provides an opportunity for the Standards Committee to consider the content of the policy as it stands, and consider any alterations that might be needed. either due to the passage of time, as I said, it was last reviewed in 2019, or from issues that have arisen via the complaints process that you may have been privy to. Some immediate changes that do need to be made to the policy are alteration of certain job titles and team names within there that have changed within the council in that period of time. Also, you'll note that there are some limitations placed on councillors' access to things like printing and postage. Since 2019, the cost of printing and postage has gone up quite significantly, so it might be necessary to review whether that limit that is placed on councillors annually is still appropriate. I do have some figures that I can share with councillors on the latest printing costs that are provided by our document management centre, which does the majority of the council's printing. And another thing we may wish to consider is reference within the policy to locality support, which isn't included at the moment, but is an increasingly important part of the support offer that is provided to councillors and has undergone some fairly substantial changes within the last sort of 12 to 18 months in terms of how it is structured. So that might be something that councillors may wish to see included in this policy. But really it is to open the discussion. Happy to take any questions on the nature of the policy and any of the specific clauses within it. And happy to take any recommendations on areas where it may need to be strengthened or adapted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. So I come back to what I said previously on there's absolutely no harm, embarrassment or shame, and no one will think less of you if you're not sure about anything to ask. It's quite easy to do something that you might think is okay, and then whether it's an opposition councillor or whatever can sort of challenge you or report you. So rather than to risk that, I've always said on this committee that if you're not sure of anything, ask. There is support available, there is advice available, and we're all passing by the member services area. Just ask Alex, Stephen, or anybody else there about what we can and can't do on this. And it's more or less sort of linked with the code of conduct, although it's a separate item, but it still has that significance of making sure that, we act appropriately and use the facilities appropriately. Anybody like to make any comments on that? Oh, okay.
Do councillors do excessive printing?
I think it comes in sort of ebbs and flows, and I think at the time that these limitations were introduced, there was some quite substantial print requests that were coming through to the document management centre. In the most recent figures we have available, so we've been monitoring this a little bit more closely since around November time, but the cheapest way that we are able to send out mail is via the hybrid mail system. So rather than, which basically means that we submit letters digitally that are then printed in envelopes downstairs and sent out in one go. And that comes in around 59 pence per letter.
Mail is expensive.
And we've spent around £1,000 since November the 1st on councillors' mail. And then there is printing as well, and I think it varies from ward to ward, but one of the support services we provide is we print surgery notices for councillors, and some councillors will have maybe 1,000 surgery notices printed, and no postage cost associated with that, but there is a standard single-sided printing in black and white costs around 6 pence, so that's 1,000 would be 60 pounds. So. So no, councillors I don't think we have a problem at this moment with excessive print usage, and in my opinion, the requests that do come through to us are entirely appropriate and consistent with the support offer that we provide. But there have been occasions in the relatively distant past now where it perhaps hasn't been entirely appropriate or consistent with the rules that we now have in place.
It might be worth making councillors aware of the cost. 6 pence a sheet seems quite expensive. I don't know, is that with the coloured heading on the bottom, or is that just black and white? Or
6 pence is black and white single-sided. 9 pence for colour printing is the figures that we provide for by the IBS. Double-sided 7 pence for black and white, and 10 pence for colour.
I see that when you actually go to print, it tells you how much your print costs are.
we don't, you see, we never go to print. because we always just pass it on to member services, which is what that tells us to do, actually.
Yeah, I think these are the costs. It's important to stress that these are the costs from the DMC. So it is cheaper for us to print from the document management centre. If you go to the multifunctional devices, it does actually show you how much the cost from those devices, and that is significantly more than that.
Okay.
Um,
Are
so-
they rented or are they? Is it?
Rent,
So it's a. The rent includes all the paper and all the.
yeah.
And that's
one thing that you'll note
quite a bit.
One thing that you'll note within the protocol is that there is an annual limit of £150 per ward. Now, that might be something that we need to adjust, not least because we no longer have equal wards. We have 3 2-member wards now since this policy was written. And obviously those limits were set in
Just
2000.
just to confirm, is that per ward per councillor? It says per councillor.
It says per councillor.
Sorry, it is per councillor, and then limits can be pulled within wards
Before
if
I,
councillors choose to do so.
Before I bring Councillor Ashford, I mean, look, we have more, but I'm just wondering whether there's a need for 1,000 surgery notices.
Which I was going to ask.
You know, if you look at the sort of each ward, I guess they have the surgeries in different places. Certainly we do. So within the vicinity, there might be 40, 50 places where you can display it. You know, rather than sending it to sort of people's households, display that, whether there's a church there or mosque or, you know, hairdressers or whatever to display, which is what we do. And we, I think, have about 20 or 30 per area that we deal in, which is sort of like 60 as opposed to 1,000. So, you know, maybe something that we need to look at to see whether we can put a limit on the number of posters we could give them.
I think there's different practice in different wards. So some wards might choose to do a neighbourhood walkabout where they might put a notice through a letterbox a few days prior to being in that area, whereas others might choose a particular surgery venue. As part of the support offer, we will produce those surgery posters, but quite often I know that councillors will use the digital version of that and post it on social media, for example, which in many cases can be a lot more impactful than so we would always try and encourage the efficient use of the council's resources. And as I said, the cost should be contained within that annual limit that is within the protocol. We've started to monitor it a little bit more closely in recent months. As I said, I don't believe we have excessive print costs in any area of the city, but it is something important that we try to keep on top of and ensure that it's consistent with the requirements of this particular policy.
Just clarify what you've just said. I think every ward's got their own social media page. So I think for us to be printing that many documents, there's no need for it. You've got probably 15, 20 outlets within your ward, no matter which ward you represent, as long as they've got coverage, because a lot of people frequent shops or pubs or whatever. And obviously every single ward's got their own social media page. I think that's the best way to limit costs, and that's something we need to look at, because 1,000, it just seems ridiculous to me.
Perhaps it's something that we need to look at. I mean, as you said, different councillors work different ways, but I can only reiterate from my experience in operating programs, if we have a walkabout, we generally tell people that there'll be a surgery so and so, and then we put notices in shops and, you know, hairdressers and etc., and keep the cost down to minimum basically, and then we sort of tend to do it by hand. But it's certainly something that we should look at.
As I say, Chair, welcome a recommendation for this committee to go away and just review those requirements, because, as I said, passage of time may no longer be appropriate. And similarly, there are a few factual things that we just need to update within this document that reflect changes in structure within the council over the 5 years, in fact, since it was last reviewed. So if the committee are in agreement, I'll have to take that one away.
Yep, okay with that. Open my fast. Keep going for another 10 minutes. Are we okay with that recommendation then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Volume and outcomes of council complaints. Are we gonna that in with the exclusion of press.
Well, we've got the open item at item 7.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. This is a standard report on the volume and outcome of council complaints in municipal year 23-24, and will be the last report to this committee of this municipal year. 16 complaints have been received this municipal year and 10 have been dismissed, 6 remain live. As set out in the report, it's important to note that when a complaint is dismissed, this includes circumstances by which a subject member has taken steps to resolve a complaint by way of an informal resolution of action of the monitoring officer. And this could include a written apology or some form of corrective action. Of the 5 of the 10 that was dismissed complaints, 5 of those have been dismissed following an apology being issued. I think it's worth mentioning that some work is being done by a working group of this committee to look at that procedure, because some queries have been raised by members around how that procedure works, and a working group has been established, Chair, that is reviewing that, and that work is ongoing.
Okay, thank you for that. We've covered this many times, but I believe that we have enough information that we require to make our judgments. And I've never sought the need to have complainants or subject members' details to brought before here. It serves no purpose. And it's something that I've been saying for years. So I think we're quite happy with what's happened, and thank you for that. No, not as many public here, but there might be some watching us, right? We'll run this, so if we can exclude the press and public, then Stephen. Personally, I'd have been watching Heartbeat, but